The Curse of Black Creek Motel, Part 1. The last transmission. The night felt heavy that Friday the 13th. Not that Charlie Davis was a superstitious man. He'd been driving trucks for almost 20 years, crossing the roads of Michigan from one end to the other through storms, snow, accidents, even a few lunatics trying to rob truckers on the interstate. But that night, he couldn't explain it. Something in the air felt different. The dashboard clock showed 11:47 p.m. when he decided to leave the main highway and take an old back road that cut through Eldon Grove. It wasn't the recommended route, but with bald tires and a nearly empty gas tank, he didn't have much choice. The nearest gas station was just past that sharp turn where the woods swallowed the road, and no one liked driving through there at night. The radio hissed with static, cutting in and out. "Dispatch, this is Davis. I'm taking the back road now," he said, pressing the button on his CB. Nothing. "Light rain here. If I don't check in 15 minutes, send someone to look for me, all right?" The radio crackled, but all that came through was a long, dragging whisper, almost like someone was trying to speak but couldn't quite get the words out. Charlie frowned. It wasn't the first time the radio had glitched like that. But this static sounded wrong. It was like there were words hidden in the interference. But what words? That's when he rounded the bend and saw the lights. Off to the side of the road, a small rusted sign caught the weak beam of his headlights. Black Creek Motel. 3 miles. His stomach dropped. Charlie had heard about that place before. Old truck stop gossip. A motel abandoned since the 80s. The scene of some tragedy no one liked to talk about. Some stories said it was a brutal murder by one of the employees. Others claimed secret cult rituals happened behind those moldy walls. But the one everyone knew was about the disappearances. Drivers who stopped there, either out of need or curiosity, and were never seen again. So why the hell were the lights on? The yellowish glow of streetlights flickered on the wet asphalt, and even as his tires slipped slightly on the curve, Charlie eased off the gas. And that's when he heard it. Through the static on the radio, a voice, "Don't go." Barely audible, but it was there. His stomach twisted into ice. Glancing out his truck window, he saw one of the motel windows flicker with light. A shadow. Someone inside, moving slowly, like they were watching the road. The silhouette of a tall figure, standing perfectly still, just watching. Charlie hit the gas. The truck's back wheels slid slightly on the wet road. He needed to get out of there. "Dispatch!" he yelled into the CB. "I'm seeing someone. There's someone out here." The radio screeched suddenly with a sharp, piercing tone, like a scream cut off halfway. Then silence, but it wasn't just any silence. There was something beneath it, whispers, voices, and then one clear sound cutting through the noise like glass shattering in the dark. "Tonight is Friday." And then it stopped. Charlie Davis was never seen again. No truck, no documents. Not even tire tracks on the wet road when the highway patrol searched the area hours later. On the official police report, just one handwritten note left by the officer in charge. Unsolved disappearance. Last transmission. Friday, March 13th, 1987. Attached, audio file of last transmission. Recorded but files corrupted. After that night, the Black Creek Motel became a forbidden topic around Eldon Grove. But not for everyone. Present day, 2025. 38 years later, 4 friends stuffed their backpacks into the trunk of a rental car, ready to break the curse. They wanted the full story, they wanted answers, and they had chosen on purpose the next Friday the 13th to do it. What they didn't know was that some curses aren't satisfied with just stories. They want presence, they want witnesses, and they don't always let those witnesses tell what they saw. Part 2, The Story Hunters. Funny how it all started with a video, not one of those viral TikTok clips or dumb internet challenges, but an old video posted by some obscure YouTube channel that specialized in paranormal stories. Grainy footage, bad audio, and a clickbait title. The Forbidden Motel in Michigan, Never Go Inside. It was Ryan who stumbled across that video during another sleepless night. He was always the one obsessed with the strange, the occult, the unexplained. He'd grown up hearing stories of missing people from his grandfather, who used to be a cop around Traverse City back in the 70s. The idea of unsolved mysteries burned in Ryan's mind like an obsession. And there it was, the next big adventure. Ryan was the kind of guy everyone liked, at least on the surface. Tall, athletic, easy smile. But behind that look, there was something else. A hunger for recognition. It wasn't just about the mystery itself. It was about being the guy who would uncover what no one else dared to touch. He already had a small YouTube channel called Beyond the Legend, some videos about haunted houses, ruins, abandoned trails. Nothing big yet, but that video, that could change everything. And that's how he dragged the rest of the group into the plan. Maya wasn't exactly thrilled about it. She and Ryan had been together since high school. But while he dove headfirst into videos and urban legends, she preferred the real world. A biology student, rational, methodical, but always willing to support him. Mostly because she knew that if someone didn't keep Ryan grounded, he'd eventually get himself into serious trouble. Eli was the third member of the crew. Shy, awkward, but a tech genius. If a video had bad audio, he was the one who fixed it. If a place was too dark, he was the one who rigged up portable lighting. Ever since Ryan started the channel, Eli had been his right-hand man. Then there was Jess, the odd piece in the puzzle. Maya's cousin, visiting for the summer, accidentally caught up in the project. But Jess had this thing, or at least she said she did, intuitions, vivid dreams, feelings she couldn't explain, the kind of girl who, whether she wanted to or not, gave the group a weird, mystical vibe. Deep down, Maya knew the real reason Ryan wanted Jess along was because she'd add something special to the video. The plan was simple. Drive to Eldon Grove, find the road leading to the abandoned motel, film as much as they could, and do a special live stream on the channel. Live at Black Creek Motel on Friday the 13th. Perfect for views, perfect for everything to go horribly wrong. "Are you sure this is a good idea?" Maya asked as she threw her backpack in the trunk. "This place isn't just old, Ryan. There are real missing person cases tied to it." Ryan smiled, that smile she hated. "That's exactly why. You know how many channels fake these urban legend videos? But if we go for real..." He glanced at the camera mounted on the dashboard. "We go viral, finally." Jess, leaning against the car, let out a soft sigh. "I had a weird dream last night," she whispered. "Oh boy," Eli muttered, already used to her visions. "No, seriously." Jess lifted her gaze, locking eyes with Maya. "I dreamed of a dark road. Something was following me. I couldn't see it, but I could hear it. And at the end," her voice dropped even lower, "there was this static, like a radio, like someone was trying to say something, but they couldn't get through." For a moment, Maya felt a chill creep down her spine, not because of the dream itself, but because she had also heard something weird the night before. That low hiss of static, like a radio somewhere in the apartment, even though nothing was turned on. She swallowed hard, hiding her unease. "It's just your mind playing tricks." She tried to brush it off. "You've been listening to Ryan talk about this for days. It probably slipped into your dreams." Of course, Ryan loved the story. "Perfect. That's going to be amazing for the video. We could start the stream with that." Jess rolled her eyes but didn't argue. Deep down, part of her wanted to be there, even though something inside her screamed not to go. The car started. The GPS flickered with the route to Eldon Grove, and as the group hit the road, none of them noticed the most important detail. The car's radio, even though it was turned off, displayed a fixed frequency on the screen. 13, and just below it, blinking slowly, Friday. But that was just a glitch, right? In part 3, the road to Black Creek. The road to Eldon Grove didn't look much different from any other rural highway in Michigan. Worn asphalt, open fields stretching out on both sides, dark forests creeping closer in some spots, farther away in others. But there was something about the atmosphere that Friday the 13th, something unsettling. Maybe it was the sky, grayish with low clouds dragging shadows along the ground. Or maybe it was the silence. Not the usual quiet of a countryside road, but something heavier, like the whole world was holding its breath. The rusted sign appeared by the side of the road after a few hours. Eldon Grove, 6 miles. Finally, Ryan said, adjusting the camera, filming the road ahead. Maya stared at the horizon in silence. With every mile, that knot in her stomach tightened. It wasn't just nerves, it was something deeper, a feeling they were crossing some invisible boundary, leaving the familiar behind, and stepping into a place where the usual rules didn't apply. Jess sat in the back seat with her arms crossed, eyes narrowed as she stared out the window. "Are we almost there?" Eli asked, clearly uncomfortable. Ryan nodded. "Just a few more minutes, then we'll take the side road that leads to the motel." But they didn't need GPS to find the way. Right after the entrance to Eldon Grove, there was a poorly maintained fork, no signs, covered in dead leaves and fallen branches. The asphalt gave way to a dirt path flanked by ancient, twisted trees. It felt like the road itself was trying to hide that path from anyone passing by. That's when Jess spoke, almost a whisper. "This road, it was in my dream." The silence inside the car became thick, almost physical. And then came the sound. Static, low, persistent, like a radio trying to tune into a station that didn't exist. Ryan glanced at the dashboard. The radio was still off, but the static, it was there, somewhere. Inside the car, outside, impossible to tell. "Probably interference," Eli said, trying to sound logical, but his voice didn't convince even himself. Maya tightened her seatbelt, eyes locked on the dirt road stretching ahead of them. The forest here felt denser. Ancient trees, their canopies tangled together, shadows shifting as the wind moved through the brittle branches. For a brief second, Maya thought she saw a figure between the trees, a dark shape, standing still, watching. But when she looked again, nothing. The car crept forward. No one spoke. Then, after a sharp left turn, they finally saw it. The Black Creek Motel. Or at least, what was left of it. The building, once a modest roadside motel, was now a rotten, forgotten shell. Graffiti covered the walls. Broken windows stared out like empty eyes. Vines and moss crawling over the crumbling structure. The neon sign that once read Black Creek Motel Vacancy hung crooked, gently swaying in the breeze. But the most disturbing thing was the silence. No birds, no insects, just the static. "Perfect," Ryan whispered almost reverently. "This is gonna be the best video of my life." He shut off the car, grabbed his camera, and immediately started filming, launching into a quick intro. Friday the 13th, an abandoned motel in the middle of nowhere, legends of disappearances. And we're here to show you the truth behind the story. Maya stepped out of the car more slowly, scanning every detail around her. There were strange marks on the ground, like tire tracks skidding, recent ones, which didn't make sense. The road was barely passable for their own car. And then she noticed something else. The windows weren't just broken. Some looked like they'd been shattered from the inside out. Jess stood motionless for a few moments, staring at one of the second-floor windows. "I saw someone up there," she murmured, barely audible. Eli shrank into himself. "You always see someone." But this time, no one laughed. The static in the air felt closer now. It wasn't coming from the radio. It wasn't coming from any device. It was like the place itself was making that noise. And then, cutting through that heavy silence, a voice, faint, weak, distant, but clear enough to make their blood run cold. "Someone here." The voice sounded torn, like a broken transmission trying to push through layers of interference. Ryan spun with the camera, trying to find the source, but there was nothing. Just the sound, coming from nowhere. Or maybe coming from inside the motel. He looked at the others, and for the first time since they started this trip, his confident smile faltered. "Did you guys hear that too?" This time, no one tried to explain it away. They heard it, all of them, and Friday the 13th had only just begun. Part 4. Entering the Black Creek Motel. As much as every instinct inside him screamed not to get out of that car, Ryan was determined. The camera was recording every second, capturing the tension written across all their faces. He was the first to step onto the ground, covered in damp leaves that crunched under his boots. The air was thick with the smell of mold and rust, mixed with something metallic, almost like blood. Maya followed close behind. Her eyes darted constantly, as if expecting something to emerge from every shadow. Jess hesitated, but finally stepped out. Eli stayed seated in the back for a few more seconds, before finally stepping out slowly. The group walked cautiously toward the motel's main entrance, or what was left of it. The wood was rotten, the paint peeling away. And yet, someone had placed a brand new lock on the doors, binding them together. New, shiny, a complete contrast to the decay around them. Ryan filmed it with a mixture of surprise and excitement. "Someone's been here recently." Eli shook his head. "Or someone doesn't want anyone going in." Ryan ignored the comment, riding the adrenaline. That's when Jess looked at the ground and whispered, trembling, "Tire tracks. They stop here." Everyone looked. The muddy tracks really did end exactly where they were standing, as if some vehicle had come here and vanished. The static in the air started to rise again. Now, in addition to that, small distortions began to appear in Ryan's recordings. The camera screen flickered for a moment, creating static lines. He hit the equipment, frustrated. "Shit, not now." Maya approached the lock. That's when the cold started. Not a natural cold, from the night or the wind. A cold that seemed to come from inside their skin, raising every hair on their bodies. Eli crossed his arms, trying to protect himself, but it didn't help. And then, clang! The lock fell by itself. There was no strong wind, no one had touched it. It simply released and hit the ground, the metallic sound echoing in the silence of the night. Ryan slowly turned, staring at the lock. "This is getting too good," he said with a nervous smile. Maya wasn't smiling. She was staring at the door, now slightly ajar. She was the one who said the obvious, "There's someone in there." And for the first time, Jess started crying quietly. "I dreamed this. I saw this door. I saw someone there." The static grew louder. This time everyone heard something else in the sound. Voices, disconnected, fragmented, distant. But one word stood out clearly. "Help!" Coming from inside. They all exchanged glances, and Ryan was the first to push the door open. The smell inside was nearly unbearable. Dampness, decay, something very old and dead. The main lobby was filled with overturned furniture, scattered debris, and old papers disintegrating on the floor. At the back, a counter with a broken sign, "Reception." The walls had strange marks, like scratches, long, deep, stretching from floor to ceiling. The static seemed to be coming from the walls themselves, as if embedded inside them. Ryan filmed everything, moving the camera slowly, capturing every detail. And that's when the camera caught something their eyes hadn't seen yet. A silhouette, reflected in the broken glass behind the reception desk. Quick, dark, human. It was there for an instant, then gone. Ryan froze. "Did you guys see that?" Jess started backing away, her eyes brimming with tears, her whole body shaking. And then the door behind them slammed shut with supernatural force, kicking up a cloud of dust and rust. Eli ran to it, pulling the handle. It wouldn't budge, locked, as if something was holding it shut from the other side. "We're trapped in here." That's when they heard the voice again, this time closer, almost right next to them. "Please, don't leave me here." It was a woman's voice, weak, almost a whisper. They all turned toward the dark hallway leading to the guest rooms. Something moved in that darkness, not an animal, not a gust of wind, someone. Ryan, as always, led the way, guided by equal parts fear and the ambition of making that video go viral. Maya followed behind him, her eyes red but focused. Jess, practically dragged by Eli, stumbled over debris as she tried to walk. And that's when they noticed the marks on the hallway walls. These weren't just scratches, they were handprints, human hands, dragged across the surface. Some small, childlike, others large, masculine, as if people had tried to hold onto the walls, being pulled into that darkness. Jess collapsed to the ground, sobbing openly. "I saw this. I saw all of this in my dream," she kept repeating like a hysterical mantra. Ryan tried to help, but Maya turned to him furious. "We need to get out of here now." But before anyone could move, something changed in the static. The voices became clear, and what they were saying was no longer a cry for help. It was a warning. "Don't leave. He's here." At that moment, Ryan's flashlight flickered for a second, and in those few frames captured by the camera, a face appeared, pale, black eyes, staring directly at the lens. Then came the scream, not from anyone in the group, from someone inside the motel, coming from somewhere further ahead, a human scream, desperate. Part 5. The Whispering Hallway. The scream echoed through the motel like a muffled explosion, reverberating from somewhere deep within the hallways, coming from an undetermined point ahead of them. But there was something wrong with that sound. It wasn't just a scream of fear, there was pain in it, a deep ancient despair, as if it had been echoing in that place for years. The group stood frozen for a few seconds, paralyzed by fear. Then Eli, panting, whispered, "This place isn't empty." Ryan was still filming, but now his hands were shaking. Even he knew this wasn't a joke anymore. Maya was the first to move. "We need to find a way out through the back. There's no point in going back to the entrance." Ryan nodded slowly, and the four of them started moving forward down the hallway. The floorboards creaked beneath their feet, and the static buzz was becoming a constant hum inside each of their heads. As they moved on, the doors to the rooms appeared one by one, open or half open, revealing devastated interiors, overturned beds, shredded mattresses, rotting furniture. But in some of them, there were signs of recent use. Blankets hastily thrown aside, empty water bottles, recent ones, and footprints, fresh footprints in the dust leading into the dark rooms. That's when Maya came to a sudden stop. On the wall to the left, someone had scrawled something with what looked like charcoal or soot. "Don't go into room 6. Jess saw it and started murmuring, It's the same, it was that number." "What?" Eli asked, gripping her shoulders. "In my dream, it was always number 6. Someone was calling me from inside, someone asking for help. But, she started sobbing. "It wasn't human, it wasn't a person." The group stood there facing room 6. Unlike the others, this door was closed, untouched, as if time hadn't worn it down like the rest of the motel. The static here was louder, almost deafening. The camera was picking up so much interference, the footage was starting to become useless. And then came the knocking. 3 knocks, knock, 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 from inside the room. Ryan brought the camera closer, trembling, focusing on the door. The voices within the static now overlapped, whispering all at once, layers upon layers, making it almost impossible to understand anything, except for one word, repeated endlessly: "Don't open!" Jess collapsed to her knees, covering her ears, eyes shut tight. "He's coming out! He's coming out!" Suddenly the lock turned by itself. The sound of the mechanism echoed through the silent hallway. Click. The doorknob started turning slowly. It was Maya who acted first, grabbing Ryan's arm and yanking him backward with force. "Run!" The group bolted down the hallway, heading deeper into the motel, fleeing from that door that was now opening inch by inch. Behind them, the sound, not footsteps, something dragging, something heavy, something wet. Shh! Shh! They rushed through corridors, growing darker and darker, until they found a half-open door leading to the back of the motel. But what they found wasn't an exit. It was a large room, like a cafeteria or event hall. In the center, a row of overturned chairs, papers scattered everywhere, and in the back, an old fireplace now blackened with soot and ash. And above the fireplace, hanging in a crooked frame, a picture, an old faded photograph but still visible. It showed a group of people posing, smiling in front of the motel, back when it was still new, bright, inaugurated decades ago. But someone had scratched out most of their faces with something sharp. Only 2 faces remained untouched. One was a man in a light-colored suit, his hair slicked back, wearing a stiff smile. And the other, the face of a young woman. Her eyes seemed to be staring straight at them. Then Ryan noticed something. At the bottom of the frame, a small, corroded plaque, still partly legible. Grand opening of the Black Creek Motel, November 13th, 1964. Friday the 13th. "It was here," Ryan whispered. "They opened this place on a Friday the 13th. Maya turned to him. "And you really think that's a coincidence?" Eli, searching around, found a pile of old documents by the wall. He picked one up, his hand trembling. It was a newspaper clipping, still partly readable. "Mystery at Black Creek. Disappearances continue. Locals claim to hear screams coming from the property. Sheriff denies connections to cults or satanic rituals." Another clipping with the headline, "The Night at the Motel. 5 missing, no bodies found." Then the sound changed. It wasn't static anymore. It was music, a faint old song playing low like a distant radio muffled by thick walls. A slow 60s song dragged out with a soft female voice, hypnotic. Jess started laughing, a hollow, empty laugh. It was that night, that Friday. They locked the doors. No one got out. No one ever got out. Eli grabbed her shoulders, trying to steady her, but that's when the voice came from behind them. "You shouldn't have come here." They all turned at the same time. Standing at the entrance to the room, a figure, a man, tall, thin, wearing an old suit, torn and stained with something dark. It was the man from the photograph, but his face was deformed, as if it had been partially burned, twisted into something between a smile and a scream. His eyes black as oil. Ryan slowly raised the camera. But before he could react, the figure shot forward, gliding without moving its legs, impossibly fast, rushing straight toward them. Part 6. Echoes of the Lost Night. The advance of that figure was so fast that the world itself seemed to compress around them. Maya yanked Jess backward, and Eli instinctively stepped in front of them. But the figure stopped. Less than a meter away, the man in the burned suit hovered in the air, motionless, staring at them. His lips moved, but the sound came out distorted, like an old tape being played in reverse. Then he whispered, "You brought her back." And he vanished. He didn't run. He didn't dissolve. He simply vanished, like someone had cut a frame out of a film reel. Silence hung over them for several seconds. Then Ryan noticed something on the floor where the figure had been. He knelt down and carefully picked up a burned piece of paper. It was a fragment of another old newspaper. The letters were smudged, except for one part. Owner's daughter disappeared during opening night. Witnesses claim they heard screams coming from the basement. Jess dropped to her knees. It's her. It's always her in my dreams. That girl. She's still here. Owner's daughter, Eli muttered. That's why. A new sound cut through their thoughts. Laughter. Childlike. A child's laughter echoing through the ballroom. Distant at first, then growing closer. And then the old music returned, this time clearer. Come dance with me in the moonlight. Ryan spun the camera around, trying to find the source of the laughter. That's when they saw it. A radio was playing. An old wooden radio with worn-out knobs sat on a counter in the corner of the room. Its glowing tubes faintly lit the surrounding shadows. It didn't make sense. There was no power in the place. The radio's cord was cut. Maya slowly approached and, in a move that defied all logic, turned the volume knob. The music stopped, but the radio kept transmitting a recording. Voices, lots of voices. First the same song in the background, then muffled screams, sounds of pounding, noise like a panicked crowd, and then over it all a man's voice. Lock the doors, nobody leaves, you're not getting away, Clara. I told you I wouldn't lose you. I'm not losing anyone else. The sound dissolved into static, but just before the white noise took over completely, a final scream echoed through the room, chilling every inch of their skin. Daddy, no! The radio cracked and turned itself off. Ryan looked at Maya. Clara, the daughter. It was her. She was locked down here that night. Jess slowly got back to her feet, her eyes glassy. And she's still here. Suddenly, the side doors of the ballroom flew open with a sharp crack. A gust of cold wind swept through the space, bringing with it the smell of smoke and burned flesh. In the hallway beyond the doors, footprints appeared by themselves, sinking into the dusty floor, moving toward them. And then, the old ceiling lamps started flickering one by one, lighting up along the path of the footsteps, like an invitation or a trap. Eli voiced what they were all thinking. They want us to see what happened. Against every instinct, the group followed the footprints. The hallway led to a rusty spiral staircase descending into the motel's basement. With every step down, the smell of burning intensified, and the walls were scratched. Deep claw marks, fingernails dragging through plaster down to bare concrete. Help! Was written over and over again. When they reached the bottom of the stairs, they found a large underground room, stifling, with a low ceiling and soot-streaked walls. In the center stood something resembling an improvised altar made of broken wood, empty bottles and bones. And above it all, hanging on the opposite wall, was a massive photograph of Clara, the same girl from the portrait above the fireplace, but now older, wearing a white dress, her face partially burned, as if someone had tried to set the picture on fire intentionally. That's when Jess started reciting something softly, almost in a trance. He locked everyone down here. The doors were sealed. And then he set the place on fire, so no one could take her away, so no one would ever see her again. Eli stepped closer to the altar and found, among the ashes, a child's bracelet, partially melted, but with one detail still intact, the name Clara engraved on a small metal plate. That's when the air felt like it was being sucked out of the room. The ashes rose, spinning like living smoke in spirals around them. And a voice, now crystal clear, echoed from all directions. "Get me out of here!" The temperature dropped, the lights went out, and something moved in the dark. Not a man, not an animal, but the warped shadow of a child, dragging invisible chains across the floor, staring at them with blank, pupilless eyes. Part 7. The Final Choice. The silence after the scream was absolute. Not even the sound of their own breathing felt real. Only that cutting cold and the oppressive sensation of being watched. The shadow standing before them didn't move, but it was as if something was waiting. Something or someone. Clara? Maya tried. The figure's white eyes gleamed, and a sharp crack echoed throughout the basement like bones breaking. Slowly, the silhouette began to approach, dragging invisible feet across the dirty floor. With every step, invisible chains rattled, as if the girl's spirit were bound to that place. That's when Ryan, still holding the camera firmly in his hands, did something no one expected. "Clara! We know what he did to you. We saw it. We can get you out of here," he shouted. The echo of those words seemed to enrage something there. The walls shook, dust fell from the ceiling, and the old candles scattered across the floor lit up on their own, forming a perfect circle around them. Jess shrank against Eli. "This isn't an invitation. It's a prison. We walked right into her trap. Or his." At the center of the altar, the metallic bracelet started to vibrate. Then the female voice echoed again, but this time in two overlapping tones, as if two voices were speaking at once. "Help me. No one leaves." Two consciousnesses trapped in the same space. The girl begging for help and her father's presence, still trying to keep her there, trapped even decades later. That's when Eli realized their being there wasn't a coincidence. It wasn't just bad luck or the curiosity of young people wanting to explore a haunted motel. It was a cycle. Every Friday the 13th, that ritual repeated itself. The old news stories, the missing persons reports from the area, everything pointed to people being drawn there to feed the repetition of that night. An eternal loop of suffering, screams and fire. And now, they were part of it. "There has to be a way," Jess whispered, her eyes brimming with tears. "There has to be a way to break this." Maya looked around desperately, and that's when she saw it, trapped between the charred wooden beams, an old golden lighter, incredibly intact, with the initials TBC engraved on it. "It's her father's. He started the fire. It was with this," Maya muttered, picking up the object. Ryan turned instantly. "The fire was the beginning of all this. Maybe it's the end too." "You want to burn the whole place down?" Eli asked, surprised. "No, but maybe that's what his spirit fears. Maybe that's the only way to break the cycle," Ryan said, staring at the shadow of the girl in front of them. The shadow stopped. For a brief second, the figure seemed to hesitate, as if recognizing the object in Maya's hand. That's when the girl's voice came again, now clearer, full of sorrow. "He said I could never leave. Said if anyone tried, he'd burn it all again." And behind that innocent voice, another deeper one began screaming, coming from the walls, the ceiling, the floor itself. "My daughter isn't leaving with strangers. You won't take her from me." The ground shook violently. The invisible chains were yanked backward with brutal force. Clara was dragged a few steps back, fighting, reaching out to them, not a threatening shadow anymore, but a child struggling against the horror of her own father. It was Jess who acted. She stepped over the circle of candles, grabbed the metallic bracelet, and clasped it around the skeletal wrist of Clara's apparition. Immediately, a wave of hot air swept through the room, making all the flames flicker violently. The chains began snapping one by one, each breaking in a burst of blinding white light. The father's scream became desperate. "Not you! Not with them! Not with them!" And then the walls began to burn. Not normal fire, but flames that erupted from the cracks, burning without consuming the structure, illuminating twisted faces of other victims trapped there for decades. Everything was collapsing. The ritual was breaking apart. Eli shouted, "We need to get out, now!" But Ryan didn't move. He stared at Clara, who was now smiling for the first time. "The way out is where it all began," she whispered, "behind the mirror." Without another word, her image disintegrated into a shower of ashes, and the chains exploded with a deafening crack. The walls shook, the ceiling began to crack apart, the altar exploded. The only thing left to do was run. They climbed the spiral staircase with the sound of voices and cracking wood behind them. The hallway of the main hall was lit with ghostly flames, but the old mirror above the fireplace, the one they'd seen on that first night, started to warp, revealing a dark gap behind it. It was an old service passage, hidden for decades. They went in and ran through ancient tunnels, between brick walls reeking of rot, until the darkness gave way to an opening on the outside of the motel, just behind the abandoned parking lot. When they emerged, the motel was whole again, silent, cold, as if nothing had ever happened, but the bracelet on Jess's wrist still glowed softly. In the distance, the sound of sirens began to echo, drawing closer. And for the first time since all of this began, the sky was starting to lighten, but deep down, all of them knew. This story wasn't over yet. Part 8. The Echo of the Flames. The cold dawn wrapped around the group as they slowly walked along the trail leading back to the road. None of them were sure how long they'd been inside. It felt like the motel existed outside of time. The sirens they'd heard earlier were gone. No sign of police, no firefighters, nothing. Just the sound of the wind and the distant creak of an old sign swaying silently in the parking lot. Maya kept glancing back, expecting to see the place engulfed in flames again. But the Black Creek Motel stood there, silent and heavy, as if it were only asleep. Then Ryan broke the silence. No one's going to believe this. Hell, I don't even believe it. Jess was still holding Clara's bracelet. For some reason, she couldn't bring herself to let it go. It wasn't just her father, she whispered. He was just the beginning. I felt it. There's more, so much more. Her words hung in the air, but no one had the courage to ask what she really meant. Then came a metallic click, the sound of a lighter being flicked open. They all turned, frozen, but it was Eli. He was holding the golden lighter, the same one Maya had found in the basement. Open, close, lost in thought, like someone trying to wake up from a nightmare. We should get rid of that, Maya said sharply. It's his. That fire, this motel, everything started because of that. Eli didn't answer. He just stared at the object in his hand. That's when Maya noticed something. The initials, TBC, they looked different now. The letters had been re-etched, like someone had modified them. They were no longer clear. And beneath them, hidden by time and scratches, she saw something else. She squinted and managed to read it. To be continued. Not someone's initials, a message, a promise. Ryan saw it too. This isn't a coincidence, he muttered. Someone did this later. Someone knew the cycle would continue. The weight of that realization hit them all like a punch to the gut. Clara wasn't the only one. The Black Creek Motel wasn't just a cursed building. It was part of something bigger, a knot in a web of horrors repeating over and over in different places, always on specific dates. Always on a Friday the 13th, Jess was the one who finally said what they were all thinking. We didn't stop anything, we just opened the door. The silence that followed was broken by another sound, a cell phone alarm. Maya checked the screen. Midnight, Friday the 13th is over. But in the distance, the motel's broken neon sign flickered once, almost like it was answering them, mocking them. And far down the dark road, headlights appeared. Not police, not help, but a black sedan, old with tinted windows, pulling up slowly to the side of the road, like it had been waiting for them. The doors didn't open, but from inside, a vague silhouette sat, watching them. Ryan stepped forward, camera in hand, but couldn't bring himself to say anything. They all exchanged glances. This story wasn't over, not even close, and now, more than ever, they were part of it.